A pandemic. This is endemic. It's something that's not going away. And the sooner that our fellow Americans and our fellow, or your fellow Washingtonians and your fellow Spokanites recognize that this Spokomptons, that the sooner we recognize that, the sooner we can start talking to people about, is this how you want to live your life? Because most people that are in agreement with vaccine mandates, mask mandates, lockdowns, and all these other ridiculous things, most of them don't want to live that way forever. They just think that that's necessary, even all evidence to the contrary. They think that's necessary in order to be able to get back to the normal of not having COVID anymore. And I think the sooner that we can show them that this isn't going away, and that we now have to decide, do we want to live this way forever, or are we going to start fighting back? Are we going to stop complying? I think it's great that we are here and we are shooting guns and we're having a fun time together. And America's a very unique country in that we're really the only major country where in the majority of parts of the country, people can own firearms and shoot them and do things like this. The U.S. Private gun owners are larger. If you take the number of private gun owners in the U.S., they are larger than I think the 10 largest militaries combined.
Woo!
Yes.
That's number one.
Those are rookie numbers. Yes. All of them are going to outnumber everyone.
Would
But
none?
if you look at just the sheer number,
fair share.
if you look at the sheer number of guns that are owned, they outnumber, I think, the top 20 or 30 militaries combined. But many of the people that own those weapons are disarmed up here, which is what matters. So I'm going to tell a story that I found out about in Georgetown, South Carolina. I went to it's called the Rice Museum. It basically tells the history of the rice what's it called? Anyway, the rice plantations in Georgetown. And it tells the story of what it was like, what the life was like there. And most of it is talking about what it was like for the slaves that lived there. Because at that time, slaves outnumbered free people in that area in Georgetown, South Carolina, like almost 10 to 1. You had a plantation owner, you had a few plantation owners, and over thousands of slaves, okay? And so I discovered something very interesting. They gave the slaves guns. They gave them guns because part of the job that they had was to keep the pest birds away. And so they give them guns and they give them muskets and rifles and tell them if you shoot, if you're able to you shoot at the birds if you see them, and if you successfully hit one, you get to keep that bird for yourself, and you and your family can eat it, you can share it. You don't have to just have the byproduct of the pig or the cow or whatever we're eating. You actually get a whole bird for yourself. Now picture this. You have a population that outnumbers the people that presume to own them, like 100 to 1 or 15 to 1 or some ridiculous thing. And even just there were more armed slaves than there were non-slaves there. And so you had these slaves walking around with guns, and all they could think is, man, I hope I get to shoot a crow today. Disarmament of the mind. We can all have guns all day long. We could all have machine guns and grenade launchers, which, by the way, as a libertarian, we should all have machine guns and grenade launchers.
Medicinal machine guns.
Additional recreational plutonium, yes. But that doesn't matter if we're disarmed here. If we are armed to the gills, but the threat of some possible punishment is enough for us to comply with literally everything they put in front of us, it doesn't matter, and they know that. Yeah, they want to disarm us, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is making sure that when they tell you jump, you say how high, and you double check with them to make sure you're following the newest jumping guidance for that week, right? You're following the jumping science. We have to. That wasn't as funny as it was funnier than I thought it was going to be. I didn't actually mean for that to be funny, but yeah, no, it worked. I think it's important that we recognize this is why the theme of this weekend has been mass non-compliance, because we are seeing what happens when we're complying. That compliance is mostly coming from people going, I don't like this any more than you do. But if we go along with this, then maybe we can end COVID, or maybe they'll leave us alone. But we're seeing what happens. We comply with this, so now they push for this. And then we comply with that, and so they push for that. and on and on and on and on and on. And we look at places like Australia. We look at, by the way, my speech is way longer than Mike's, but I just want to. We look at